Hello, my name is Warren Holleman,
And I'm Toby Holleman, his brother.
and we grew up in Apex, in old Apex, where downtown Apex is, in the middle part of the 20th century. Our father, Carl Holleman, grew up 100 years ago in Buckhorn, which is the township in the far southwestern corner of Wake County. Apex Friendship High School is actually in one corner of Buckhorn, and where our father grew up, down where Sharon Harris Nuclear Plant is today, that's the other side. If our father had been living today, he would have attended Apex Friendship High School. We'd like to tell you a few stories he shared with us about growing up in the 1920s and 1930s. My brother will begin with a story about an illness.
So, Dad was born in 1921. He graduated from Apex High School in 1939, and we knew as little children that they only had 11 grades back in those days. So if you do the math, you figure there's a year missing somehow. He took an extra year to graduate. Eventually, Dad never wanted to talk about it, but eventually Mama told us that when he was in the second grade, he contracted diphtheria, which hardly anyone knows about today, because when babies are born, not too long afterwards, they get a diphtheria shot, vaccination, and so forth, and it's not a problem. But back in the 1920s, it was a very serious problem. So serious, in fact, that Dad had to sit out of school for a whole year in order to recover. He had to do that and had to be very careful about what he did during that time, because this farm family, to which 10 children had originally been born, had already lost 2 children, very young children. He would have been the third. He was the youngest son in the family. So his parents said, "Carl, you're going to have to sit out the whole year and then do the second grade again next year."
Diphtheria was a scary disease back then because this was before antibiotics and, of course, before the diphtheria vaccine. Today, we don't even think about diphtheria because we have good vaccinations. But back in those days, diphtheria took a lot of lives.
Yes.
Now, the scary thing about diphtheria was the way it affected you, or the way it...
Well, among other things, you ended up being very weak and what Mama used to call puny. And if you look at pictures of our father when he was young, actually all the way up through the time when he served in the U.S. Army, Air Force, during World War II, you can see he is incredibly skinny. That's a result of having had diphtheria.
I think our father and his whole generation would be honored that you've listened to their stories, that you've appreciated what their childhood was like. And they grew up right in this neighborhood, basically just down the road, about 100 years ago. And I do think what I appreciate most is, despite this very austere and challenging childhood, these people grew up to become America's greatest generation.
Yep.
They saved the world, literally, from the Nazis and the authoritarian, those who wanted to destroy the world, as far as I'm concerned.
From the fascists of their day.
Exactly. And it's just amazing to me that the things they accomplished. And they went on to build what we call the Great Society, and they were good people.
So thank you.